Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Unman Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Trump ends high security situation room meeting on Iran without conclusive decision. White House officials say deal only possible if Tehran agrees to all conditions. India and Myanmar to discuss entire gamut of bilateral ties during President U Min Aung Hlaine's visit starting today. And in sports, French Open 2026 delivers another massive shock as Novak Djokovic knocked out by Brazil's 19-year-old sensation Fonseca in a marathon 5-set battle. As questions swirled about the state of negotiations to end the US-Iran war, US President Donald Trump said he will only make a peace deal with Iran if it meets all of his conditions. The White House had indicated Trump was close to a decision on a potential deal, even as Tehran insisted there was still no final agreement on ending the West Asia conflict. Trump attended a 2-hour meeting in the White House Situation Room on Friday, but did not reach a decision. In a social media post, Trump said Tehran would remove mines from the Strait of Hormuz and end its blockade of the waterway with no tolls, while the US would lift its parallel blockade of Iranian ports. A deal was in the offing to extend a truce in place since early April for another 60 days to allow oil and gas shipments to resume through the strategic waterway, while negotiators tackle tricky issues such as Iran's nuclear program. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said that no final understanding has been reached in ongoing talks with the United States. He added Tehran remains focused on ending the conflict rather than discussing nuclear details. Baghai rejected Western demands, saying Iran makes decisions based on its own national interests and would not accept the language of must. The two countries still appear to differ on significant issues that have been central to the conflict. The deal was waiting on Trump's sign-off following weeks of halting negotiations over a conflict that has engulfed the West Asian region and shaken the global economy. The United States issued new counterterrorism sanctions on Friday, targeting Iranian individuals and entities, among others. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Friday that any removal of the U.S. financial and economic blockade on Iran would be slow. He said U.S. had seized $1 billion in Iranian cryptocurrency assets as part of the economic component of President Donald Trump's war on the Islamic Republic. At a time of crisis in the world, discussions were held in Russia on ensuring information, economic, food and environmental security in the new multipolar world. The forum is being attended by around 5,000 participants from the BRICS and SCO countries, ASEAN and most countries in Latin America, Africa and the Middle East. So how do experts propose to tackle global challenges? Details in this report.
Russian, English, Chinese, Farsi. Over 120 languages are spoken on the sidelines of the International Security Forum. Around 5,000 participants, delegations from the BRICS, SCO, ASEAN and most countries in Latin America, Africa and the Middle East are discussing global challenges in Russia. One of the most important topics is information security. According to analysts' estimates, the annual cost of cybercrime worldwide runs into the trillions of dollars.
It is very difficult, in fact impossible, as it's been highlighted many times, for one nation to provide security on ICT on its own. We need to cooperate as players can, especially criminal players, can be in many different geographical locations.
We need to develop a single set of rules that would regulate the actions of states and their companies in the digital sphere. Obviously, the voluntary codes of conduct adopted by the United Nations over the past decade are no longer sufficient. Clear, legally binding norms are needed.
Work is underway in this direction. At Russia's initiative, the UN General Assembly has drafted the Convention on Cybercrime. This is the first universal treaty in the field of international information security. Bilateral talks are taking place in parallel with the business program. Russia is ready to step up cooperation on security issues with South Africa, emphasized Sergei Shoigu, secretary of the relevant council, in a conversation with Kambutso Ntshavheni, Minister of Presidency of the Republic. A trusting dialogue has been established between the heads of state, it was stated at the meeting. In total, the Russian Security Council will hold around 40 meetings.
This bilateral meeting is very important for us, as it is a logical continuation of the talks that took place in February this year, when the president of Madagascar visited Moscow and met with the Russian leader. It is logical that we are meeting today to delve deeper into discussions on our bilateral relations, including in the fields of education and agriculture.
The exhibition also suggests topics for dialogue. On display are the pride of Russia, traditional crafts and achievements in the rocket and space industry. The 14th International Meeting of High-Level Representatives responsible for security issues was the central event of the forum. The main item on the agenda was how to maintain stability amidst the formation of a new global architecture.
To strengthen coordination among the countries of the Global South and East, the following is important: to strengthen the central coordinating role of the United Nations in every way, to support the group of friends in defense of the Charter of the United Nations established on Russia's initiative, and to avoid provoking contradictions, disagreements and confrontations in relations between the states of the Global South and East.
The program comprises over 20 events, briefings, roundtables, conferences and presentations. Their outcomes will form the basis for joint initiatives and decisions. The TV BRICS International Media Network served as the forum's international information partner.
Moving on to Israel-Lebanon tension, military officials from both the nations held productive talks in Washington on Friday. A U.S. official said, adding that the meeting will complement upcoming diplomatic discussions. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Friday that his country's forces had pushed deeper into Lebanon, even as Israeli and Lebanese military delegations were holding landmark security talks in Washington. A truce to halt the fighting between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah group was supposed to have taken effect on the 17th of April, but has never been observed. Both sides accuse each other of violating it and justify their attacks by the other's alleged breaches. The United Nations said its peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon continues to observe intensive Israeli military air and ground activity across the UN interim force in Lebanon area of operations, including activity reported north of the Litani River, and said access and emergency response capacity remain severely constrained.
Elsewhere in Lebanon, local authorities tell us that repeated evacuation orders are forcing families to flee repeatedly and then return to their homes as security conditions shift. The humanitarian and resident coordinator for Lebanon, Imran Riza, said today he's deeply alarmed by the intensification of hostilities and the impact of evacuation orders by Israel have on communities across the country. In a statement, he referred to reports that airstrikes have harmed civilians as they attempted to leave areas under displacement orders, stressing that international humanitarian law clearly states that civilians, including health workers and first responders, must be protected.
Moving on to the U.S.-Cuba crisis, senior U.S. and Cuban military officers met on Friday at Guantanamo Bay, the U.S. base on the communist island, as relations between the two countries plunge over President Donald Trump's threatened takeover. U.S. General Francis Donovan met with Cuban General Roberto Legra Sotolongo for a brief exchange on operational security matters. Donovan led a perimeter security assessment of the U.S. facility and discussed safety of service members and operational readiness. U.S. President Donald Trump has often cited Cuba among the foreign policy goals of his second term and has hinted it will become his focus once the war with Iran is over. Under President Donald Trump, the U.S. has effectively imposed a blockade on Cuba by threatening sanctions on countries supplying it with fuel, triggering power outages and exacerbating its worst crisis in decades. Coming to Bolivia now, where daily life in the country's administrative capital, La Paz, is being disrupted as anti-government protests and roadblocks continue across the country. Long queues formed outside gas stations in La Paz on Friday, while many markets remained closed and shop shutters stayed down as weeks of roadblocks continued to affect the city. The protests are part of a prolonged campaign against the government of President Rodrigo Paz, with demonstrators demanding a rollback of austerity measures and action to address rising living costs. Residents waited for hours and, in some cases, overnight to secure fuel supplies. The shortages have affected markets, hospitals and gas stations, adding to pressure on residents as the protests continue. The whole of Europe is experiencing the first heat wave of the year, with temperatures across the western part of the continent above seasonal averages. The heat wave has also affected Italy, as a correspondent in Milan, David Martello, reports.
During this week, Italy has been hit by a powerful heat wave. North Italy has registered a temperature well above the average for the season. Here we are in Milan. This is Parco Sempione, the main park of the city. As you can see, people are dressed and behaved like in summer, even though we are at the end of spring. Here, the temperature in the last days got to 34-35 degrees. During the last days, the government issued a warning for 4 cities in the north and center and north of the country, which are Rome, Bologna, Turin and Genova. So they were put on red alert, which means that the weather was dangerous for all people. Yesterday, all the north of Italy was hit by widespread storms that made some damage and fortunately lowered a little bit the temperature. Even though it's still very hot for today, around 30-31 degrees for the north of Italy is expected. As we wait for the end of this first heat wave of the year, we gather the testimony of some people living here who told us how is life with this kind of climate.
Moving around the city is much more difficult, in particular commuting. All those people that usually go to work by bike or walking, it's just impossible because it's too hot. So the tube, the bus, they are full of people and it's very crowded. And the second thing, it's sleeping at night. As you know, Italy has many ancient buildings where air conditioning is not present, so it's quite difficult. And then all day after, it's even more difficult, so sleeping at night and commuting.
Then I get to Milan, and Wednesday was the most heat because I get out of the train with fresh air and I get here in the summer heat, and oh boy, that was a little too much. I drink like 3 liters of water every day now, and sometimes I think it's not even enough to get the water back. They are sweating out here. And I like to be in the shade, not that much in the sun, because the sun is ever too much for me from someone else, Hamburg in Germany.
According to weather forecast, by the end of this week, rain and even some storms should come to Italy and bring down the temperature and put an end, at least for the moment, to this heat wave. The phenomenon, nevertheless, remains serious and needs to be addressed both by the authorities and the people here in Italy. This is Davide Martello reporting for DD India from Milan.
Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. India sends relics of Buddha's disciples to Mongolia for an exposition. Reserve Bank of India projects a resilient outlook for India for the next financial year.
India is home to some of the most venomous snakes in the world. 50,000 Indians almost die every year because of snake bites. And in that moment, knowing what to do can really help save a life.
Students know, they know climate change, they know global warming, they know plastics, they know microplastics. They really know what it means on a daily basis. So the connect with the environment is missing. The connect to real life every day is missing.
A eucalypt in a new environment, you're very likely to change what we call fire regimes. So fire regimes are the patterns of fire across the landscape and through time.
We add the already colonized mycelium into this sort of jute bags, and we take it to the forest for the process of which is called mycoremediation, where we are introducing more mycelium in a certain ecosystem for basically helping the ecosystem to thrive more, and also for the mycelium to grow in the same process.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. The President of Myanmar, U Min Aung Hlaing, will pay an official visit to India from 30th May to June 3 at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This will be the first visit of President U Min Aung Hlaing to India in his current capacity. During his visit to New Delhi, President U Min Aung Hlaing will hold discussions with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 1st of June on further strengthening the historical and civilizational ties between the two countries. He will also participate in a business forum. As part of the visit, President U Min Aung Hlaing will also travel to Bodh Gaya on 30th May and to Mumbai for business and industry interactions and site visits. Myanmar lies at the confluence of India's Neighbourhood First, Act East and Mahasagar policies. The official visit of President U Min Aung Hlaing to India is expected to further strengthen and deepen the multifaceted relations between the two countries. India's southwest monsoon may fall short this year. The India Met Department has forecast below normal rainfall for the 2026 monsoon season, raising concerns over farming output, water availability and heat stress across several regions. The IMD has also warned of evolving El Nino conditions that could weaken rainfall activity during the crucial June to September period. More in this report.
India may be headed for a weaker than usual monsoon this year, with the India Meteorological Department forecasting below average rainfall for the first time in 3 years. In its updated long-range forecast, the IMD said southwest monsoon rainfall during the June to September season is likely to remain at 90% of the long period average, placing it in the below normal category. According to the Weather Department, there is an 84% probability that the country could witness below normal or deficient rainfall during the 2026 monsoon season.
The average rainfall for the country as a whole for during the month of June 2026 is most likely to be below normal. It is less than 92%. And also June 26 above the temperature also, it is most of places is maximum temperature expected most of the places, and except some parts of central and northwest East India, the temperature will be maximum. That means more than normal.
The forecast suggests that major parts of central India, northwest India, south peninsular India, and the monsoon core zone, India's key rain-fed agricultural belt, are likely to face rainfall deficits. The IMD also expects June rainfall to remain below normal across most regions of the country. However, parts of northeast India, sections of northwest India, eastern parts of the South Peninsula, and isolated pockets of east and east central India may still receive normal to above normal rainfall. Meanwhile, rainfall activity is expected to intensify over Kerala till the 3rd of June. The IMD has cautioned that weaker monsoon rainfall could increase pressure on agriculture, drinking water supplies, and hydropower generation, while also raising the risk of drought and heat stress. Weather experts say evolving El Nino conditions over the equatorial Pacific are likely to strengthen during the monsoon season, a climate pattern typically associated with weaker monsoon rainfall over India. Bureau Report, DD India.
The sacred relics of Lord Buddha's two chief disciples, Arahant Sariputta and Arahant Mogalana departed from the National Museum in New Delhi to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia on Friday. Assam Governor Lakshman Prasad Acharya is leading an Indian delegation carrying the holy relics of Lord Buddha's two principal disciples, which will be exhibited at the Gandan Tek Chinlen Monastery in Ulaanbaatar from the 1st to the 10th of June. The exposition, organized by India's Ministry of Culture, the International Buddhist Confederation and the National Museum in New Delhi, marks a significant moment in the shared Buddhist heritage of India and Mongolia. The holy relics originating from the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Sanchi Stupa hold immense spiritual significance for Buddhists across the world. The initiative has been undertaken at the special instance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi as part of India's continued efforts to strengthen its enduring cultural and spiritual connections with Mongolia. While much of the world continues to battle economic uncertainty, India is sparring ahead with confidence. Strong domestic demand, easing inflation, a resilient banking sector and growing global investor interest are reinforcing India's position as the world's fastest growing major economy. The latest assessment from the Reserve Bank of India, coupled with positive global projections, signals that India's growth story remains firmly on track. Here's more in this report.
As global economies grapple with conflict, inflation and slowing growth, India continues to stand out as a pillar of resilience. Backed by strong domestic demand, a robust banking system and stable macroeconomic fundamentals, the country remains the world's fastest growing major economy. India's economic momentum remains firmly on track despite growing global uncertainties. The Reserve Bank of India, in its annual report, has projected a resilient outlook for FY27, citing strong domestic consumption, sustained investments, healthy financial institutions, and sound macroeconomic fundamentals. While external risks persist, India's strong internal demand and policy support continue to power growth. As per RBI's report, headline inflation eased sharply to 2.1% in FY26 from 4.6% a year earlier. Monetary Policy Committee reduced the repo rate by 100 basis points during the year. RBI infused liquidity through open market operations and CRR cuts to support growth and ensure smooth transmission of monetary policy. A prolonged conflict in West Asia could lead to higher crude oil prices, increased logistics costs, and renewed inflationary pressures. India's relatively lower dependence on exports and strong domestic demand should help cushion the economy against external shocks. RBI also struck an optimistic note on the health of India's banking sector. The positive assessment comes at a time when many advanced economies continue to face sluggish growth and recessionary pressures. According to the World Economic Forum's chief economist Outlook 2026, India remains among the few economies with a positive growth outlook. Growth projected at around 6.5% in 2026-27. Strong domestic demand continues to drive expansion. Young population and digital transformation powering growth. Services sector remains a major economic strength. Global companies increasing investments in manufacturing footprint. India emerging as a top priority market for global businesses. Stable policies creating opportunities in jobs, exports and manufacturing. AI startups and digital innovation accelerating future growth. With easing inflation, a resilient banking system and growing global confidence, India continues to strengthen its position as a leading engine of global growth. Even amid an uncertain international environment, the country's economic fundamentals remain firmly aligned for sustained expansion and long-term opportunity. Bureau Report, DD India.
On to sports news now. Brazilian teenager João Fonseca knocked Novak Djokovic out in the third round of the French Open on Friday to scupper the Serbian great's latest quest for a record 25th Grand Slam. The 19-year-old Fonseca rallied from 2 sets down for the second straight match to stun Djokovic, winning 4-6, 4-6, 6-3, 7-5, 7-5 after 4 hours and 53 minutes. Fonseca, the 28th seed, is through to the last 16 of a major for the first time. He will next play two-time Roland Garros runner-up Casper Ruud or American 24th seed Tommy Paul. That's it then in this edition of DD India Live. But do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. This is Munmun Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.